I'm so happy to see so many people here who actually care about the state of the internet as it exists in Toronto right now. It's sometimes it feels like it's very difficult to attract people to the Freenet. Let me tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. Freenet was founded in 1993. Now, at the time, there was knowledge that the internet is coming, it's going to be a big thing, and people are going to care. At the time, the concern among various interested parties, various different levels of government, was that people wouldn't be able to afford it, that the barrier to access would be a financial one. So Freenet was originally started in a kind of a fury of a desperation on the part of various different government actors and whatnot. Just throw money at the problem and hopefully that will make it go away. So when Freenet began, it took grant money and other types of donations from different organizations. You might be surprised to learn Rogers and Bell were interested parties at the very beginning in trying to make it happen before founding their own internet services once other people had already broken that ground. We've moved on since then, and the game has changed. We're now in a world of $5 lattes, and so people looking at internet services that are free, or $3 a month or $5 a month, it doesn't seem like the right thing. But at the same time, the landscape has changed, and it forces us to ask a very different kind of question. What does free mean to you? Is free about gratis? Is it about lack of cost? Or is free about your ability to use the network the way you need to use it to connect to the people and to the things that you want to connect to? Is it about being a product, or is it about having control over your own destiny? So we live in a little bit of a different world now, and what we start to see is the centralization that's been going on for years of all of our communications and all of our information into data silos. Things like Facebook, things like YouTube, places where, I'll just upload the cloud. I'll just upload my information to the cloud and I'll let somebody else worry about maintaining it. This started, I think, when we stopped using dial-up modems. If you all remember, some of you are old enough that you'll remember this. The first modems were, 300 baud, 1200 baud, 9600 baud, 14.4, 28.8. They were always symmetric. You could download at the same speed that you could upload. And we started to have a little bit of a moment where we were sharing our own content. We were publishing from our own hard drives. You could do that. The speeds were all the same. Dial-up modems changed. They became 56 kilobits down, only 33.6 kilobits up. A concession had been made that we're now consumers. We're not publishers anymore. We're not talking to each other. We're just watching. We're sending mouse clicks, we're sending typed URLs, and we're receiving audio, we're receiving video, we're receiving these enormous bit streams. And then broadband came along, and the concession sort of cemented itself beyond the technical era of the technology. It became prevalent in people's minds. It became prevalent in certainly the way the corporations were doing things. And we started to have more and more this difference between the speed that you can receive data at and the speed that you can transmit data at. And that made it a little bit more painful for you to, say, take your cat video and stick it on your hard drive and have everybody in the world come to you and receive it. Now it makes more sense to put it somewhere out there, put it somewhere in the cloud, and you had the rise of all sorts of little video sharing services. And then eventually YouTube in 2005. Here's an interesting statistic about YouTube for you. The last time I looked into this, they receive 48 hours of video every second. That's not what they are showing you. That's not what you're consuming. That's what they're receiving. There is a hunger. There is an enormous hunger for us to share with each other, because that's what the communications network was for. Not broadcast, which is where it has gone to, where it's become. So, back to 1993, back to the early days. As long as there was government money, there was all sorts of people showing up, they're willing to do the job, and it was fine. The government money eventually disappeared. And we only had, Freenet had to change how it operated. So we started to rely on nothing but volunteers. One man stepped up, and in the middle or so of the dial-up era, and he decided that he would take a pay cut, and he would be working for essentially minimum wage and running the Freenet all by himself. That lasted for a while, and then more and more people, as they moved to DSL, as they moved into the world of broadband, that became less and less sustainable. Freenet at its height had 50,000 members. We were the first internet service provider for a lot of people in this town, and it started shrinking. And when it became possible for competitive ISPs to do DSL, suddenly the doors opened. But the doors opened on a very different kind of internet than what they were when we had first started. They opened on this new sort of landscape where it's all about consumption. It's not about sharing with one another, but the hunger was still there. We don't think of it as publishing, because now we just click a share button, but it is publishing. We want to talk to each other. We've been wanting to talk to each other more than we ever have. The conversation has gotten larger. There's more people involved with it. People who didn't even know what a computer was in 1995 are now putting up Facebook pages. So where are we at? There are a few people in this room who have started networks. They've started projects. They've started plans. TOMesh is a good example. Toronto Community Networks. There is a number of different viewpoints, but it all converges around the same thing, and it's the idea that Freenet had in 1993, that you should have the freedom to use the network the way you want to use it. And that's sort of been taken away, but the game has changed again. The game has changed to a world where fiber is starting to bring back the symmetry. It's starting to bring back that the speed you consume is the speed that you produce at. So we're in a world where we all can start sharing from our own infrastructure. We can take our data out of these data silos and start to send it to each other directly again. We can decentralize, and there's so much desire for that, more than there ever has been before, because we've started to see from pervasive ad networks, from pervasive tracking, we've started to see that there's a real cost in just washing our hands of all responsibility, of saying, yeah, that big corporation, they can have all of my data, it's fine. So the opportunity that I see here, creating mesh networks, leveraging the power of fiber optic transmission, the symmetry of it, to create wider networks and broader networks outside of the direct control of people like Bell, people like Rogers, people who own television channels and have a vested interest in you continuing to view the web as just another broadcast medium, just a way for you to consume data. People who don't really want you to be able to talk to each other. We can have back what we had in the early days. We can have peer-to-peer again, but it's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of work from all sorts of different projects, all working together, and it's going to take an ISP that's nonprofit, whose motivation isn't just to make money off of you, to act as a kind of a connection point for all of these different people with all of these different motivations who just want the network to work for people again. So that, I guess, is why I'm here, and that is why I hope all of you are here too. So I can only say that I wish everybody who's started one of these projects the best of success, and I can only tell you that Freenet will do everything it can to try to help you achieve those goals, because those have been our goals for 24 years. Thank you.